you don't have that fluff about you कि हमें founder हूँ और 950 करोड़ का brand बेचा है.
Founder has become too glamorized a word. I think guts was Neha and execution was all of us. Neha is the most gutsy amongst the five of us. Both of us, 5 years apart, came to Delhi and realized there's a thing called bra that actually makes a difference in your life. He's an intellectual. I'm a frivolous person. So he talks economics and like worldly things. And I talk तुझे पता है उसने क्या किया? Work is my religion. I was working when I was getting married, but a girl would just walk in and say, "Oh my God, I love what you're wearing. I love your earrings. I love your hair. I love your shoes." And it's not that they need to do it. It just comes naturally to us, and nothing else motivates you in life as much as that does.
Hi, welcome to Girls Who Get It. I'm Soumya. And this is where you hear your favorite girls living their best life. Today I'm having a conversation with Soumya Khan. She's the co-founder of Clovia and she calls herself a professional bra seller. That's a title that she wears loudly and proudly. She's created not just the biggest lingerie brand in the country, but at the same time, she's one of the biggest reasons why girls feel extremely comfortable in their bodies today. So let's talk to her about what goes behind Clovia and everything else that she does. All the founders nowadays are just literally everywhere. Have you never thought about?
I think we were very busy in work to think of personal branding, so to speak. Or I would say that when we were building, being in media didn't matter so much. Of course, you needed branding for the brand. You needed Clovia to be in, newspapers, in news, in some form or manner. For funding also, it was important that Clovia was in news. But it never mattered that we were in news. Now, I think the new age founders are building a certain way where they also need to be in the news. It's almost like they've become the brand, which is also great, really. But it wasn't the case when we were building. We started in 2013, so it was a very different time.
True.
In fact, I think most people would sort of get offended if we were too much in the media.
10 years and so much difference.
Yeah.
Now every founder is everywhere on Instagram, everywhere on YouTube.
Honestly, a lot of them, yes. But a lot of founders are still out there just building. They're not really in the media. They're not doing it for the show. They're not doing it for their profile. Because all said and done, it does take away time from you. So I do understand that you get the goodness for the brand because you're in public. So you get a lot of goodness for the brand. But there are stellar businesses who people don't know about. People don't know who's building them.
Nowadays, it is almost like founders or brand बिल्कुल interchangeable है.
Yeah.
So I see कि according to me, अगर आपकी image बहुत ज़्यादा intertwined होती है, after a point in time, it's very difficult to segregate that, right? And that becomes a daunting task, especially when you're building a brand.
Yeah.
But in your case, I think that was a little different because you're such a fun person to talk to and you're so lovely. But having said that, you're not in a lot of public...
I'm not there at all. I have no media presence. If you will Google me also, you'll not really find much about me.
Yeah. And I think that's what made me even more curious. Because it's like, oh my God, she's such a fun person. Because I just watched one interview of yours and I was sold. I was like, इनसे तो मुझे बात करनी ही है. Because हर इंसान का persona होता है and you're so real and honest and you don't have that fluff about you कि हाँ मैं founder हूँ और मेरे
Please, it's really, I am just
950 करोड़ का brand बेचा है and all of that.
I think so. My neighbor runs a manufacturing unit. I think he's far more able and successful in his space than any other founder that I know. It's just that founder has become too glamorized a word. It's just that we started a business, it scaled, we got success. But there are so many other businesses who have done so well. Any manufacturing business for that matter. We drink Coke from a bottle and there is a label on it. No one is thinking that who's manufacturing those labels. But they are perhaps far more successful than us. So it's a relative concept. But because we are called founders, it's become a thing. But it's really, we just started a business and we lucked out. It's really just that.
Really?
Yeah.
And is it so simple?
It is really that simple because, and one actually, most manufacturers do it with their own money. We still did it with investors' money. Of course, we got them great returns. They made excellent money. But we didn't even have money to start with. And most manufacturers, they do it with their own money, our own vendors. So we obviously gave them working capital loans when they were starting out. They set up, small units, 10 machines, 5 machines to start with. And now they have 300 machines in their factories. So
that's crazy.
They're the ones who should be glamorized. We just enabled them, so to speak.
How does an idea like this comes to you? Because I think you had one of the most perfect jobs out there, right? And people work so hard for it. I'm sure you would have had to work so hard for it. Then how did you get the guts or an understanding कि यार यही brand है जो मुझे बनाना है और मुझे अपनी नौकरी भी छोड़ देनी है?
I think guts was Neha.
हाँ.
And execution was all of us. Gutsy, I think Neha is the most gutsy amongst the 5 of us. So Clover has 5 founders.
Love that.
So me and Neha, of course, we're sisters. There's Neha's husband, who's also the CEO of the brand. Pankaj, there is Suman Chaudhary. He's the design piece of Clover. So he's designed lingerie for Sarah Jessica Parker and Venus Williams kind of people. So he really is the god of lingerie.
Insane.
So he is the design and production piece. And then there is Abhay Batra, who's the CFO. So he's all things finance, ops, quality is with him. So the 5 of us came together, but guts has always been Neha. So it was her idea that we all came together to sort of execute.
How did that happen? What was the need?
So we grew up in a very small town of Haridwar, right? So what we used to wear then was stitched at home by our mother. So she would stitch a chemise for us, like a camisole, and just put a stitching under bust. And that's what we grew up wearing. It's only when both of us, 5 years apart, came to Delhi and realized there's a thing called bra that actually makes a difference in your life. And if you've ever been to Kamla Nagar, then there's these lanes of Roopnagar and Kamla Nagar and those markets, and you're getting a bra for 100 rupees and 49 rupees and so on. And as a young college kid, you're enamored that I never thought of this product growing up. It didn't. I had no education. I had no concept of this is a product that is also needed. And then she went for MBA, she went for her job, and I followed 5 years later, and both of us were having similar experiences when it came to lingerie. And I remember we were out. She got into child marriage. Okay, she was married when she was 23. So when she was getting married, our father gave us 5,000 rupees to go trouser shopping. So we went to Shoppers Stop, and we were trying to buy something, and it was all just national brands. And in 5,000 rupees, we were barely able to buy 2 bras or 2 sets, so to speak. And we thought this is money wasted. So we just went and ate pizza with that money. We said, never mind, let's not buy this at all. It's not needed. And we also saw a difference in how our outerwear was evolving. So when Neha started her jobs, the formal wear was kurtas, suits, even saris, or really formal pantsuits, which are now making a comeback. But back then, that was the formal attire for corporate jobs. When I went to BWC, it became slightly more relaxed pants and tops, more dresses and so on. So outerwear was constantly evolving. We had Vero Moda coming to India, we had H&M coming to India and so on.
True.
But innerwear was not evolving at all. We were still living with the black, white, beige of the country. No fitting. Retailers were selling what they could stock. The entire customer feedback engine was broken, because if I were walking into a store, the retailer was only able to sell me what they could stock in that small space. And whatever I was telling the retailer was not really getting passed on to the manufacturer. So there was a demand. But supply was a problem because the customer feedback bit was so broken. So culmination of all of this came together, and we felt that there is a need for a good lingerie brand in India, which is affordable, gives you good quality, gives you your fit, gives you fashion, gives you comfort, gives you, of course, your black, white, beige, but also gives you a strapless bra which will not fall when you're dancing on the floor. And it is affordable.
True.
A college-going girl can afford it.
True. When I was in Bareilly, मेरे को याद है एक स्टोर होता था मल्टी स्टोर, आप उसको जिसमें सब चीज़ मिलती है,
Yeah.
परचूनी की दुकान
Yeah,
जिसे
yeah.
स्मॉल सिटीज़ में बोलते हैं, साहिब राम, वहाँ पे एक व्यूअर्ड से अंकल वहाँ पे होते थे, वो बोलते थे कि दिस इज़ योर ब्रा साइज, ये ले लो. और एंड इट वाज सो वियर्ड बिकॉज आई रिमेंबर दोस ट्रेनर ब्राज, आई डोंट
Yeah.
इफ आई कैन टेक द नेम, बट बॉडी केयर के ब्राज आते थे और ऐसा लगता था कि वो बस मेरे रिप्स को फाड़ देंगे. और एंड फॉर अ 13-year-old इट वाज वेरी बहुत ही डिसअपॉइंटिंग एक्सपीरियंस.
Yeah.
At that point I felt कि why am I hitting puberty? And suddenly I think you going through so many thoughts as a child कि, and especially as a girl child,
Yeah.
कि oh my, मेरे को periods नहीं आने चाहिए. I remember the day I got my period, I was so scared. I was like, oh my god, मेरे को period आएगा till the day I die. मतलब तब पता नहीं था कि menopause में रुक जाएगा, but till the day I die ये नहीं रुकने वाला है. And I have to just do this every single a month of my life.
Oh no,
What the
I
hell
know.
is happening? And
Yeah.
similarly for underwear also, it was so weird, right? And then suddenly I live in Kalkaji. वहीं पे across the street is a Clovier store, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And recently I got a chance to be there, and I was like, and वहाँ पे it's a neighborhood store. It is
Yeah.
not like a fancy Victoria's Secret
No,
या
no,
कुछ नहीं
not
है.
at all.
वहाँ पे जाके the woman will help you if you want to get measured.
Yeah, yeah.
And that it was a revelation. I was like, really, does this happen? Is a brand in India doing this? Is that capable of is a brand like this capable of making this change? And it did, and it really surprised me and made me so happy. I was like,
I'm glad you had this experience because that was the purpose of our Clovier stores. That when a girl enters the store, she should feel happy. It should not be intimidating. It should not make her feel, oh my god, I don't have all of this, and how will I even choose? It should feel welcoming, warm. And I'm glad that you had that experience, that we were able to deliver what we were thinking of delivering.
and it makes you so happy, you know. I mean, small things like this is like, okay, this brand really has a purpose, and it truly felt like it was created by a girl.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that just gets translated to everything that you say also, and that makes me very happy because how you talk about Neha, for example,
Yeah.
or Neha talks about you, or the chemistry that you guys have.
Yeah.
And it's just so wonderful.
I know. I think both Neha and I, we have this, our core personality is that we are happy people. We're constantly happy because I think we were, when growing up, if you sort of grow up in a very secure setup, you become happy people. And it's not that we had a lot, we grew up in very basic lower middle class setup. But it just, we were surrounded by happy people, so we turned out to be happy people. And so that's what we centered the brand also around. The brand is centered around the keyword joy. The joy of finding your right fit, the joy of wearing something when you're getting ready in the morning and feeling a certain, happiness that, oh, today I look good, today I look, the bra fits me in a flattering fashion. If you're wearing a night suit, it's just so soft on my skin. So, small joys that we experience through the day, we want to deliver that joy. We don't want to, have your bra wire digging into your skin or, wearing a ill-fitted bra. So the entire brand of Clovier is centered around that word joy, and a lot of it comes from, brand becomes your own personality. Whoever you are, that becomes your brand personality. So even if you interact with us on socials, you will see that we do a lot of memes, we laugh a lot. That if you enter our office, you'll feel that instantly you'll feel that this is a happy place. And that's not because we're doing something specific. It's just because the brand is built in such a manner.
But how does that happen? Because if you build a brand that's this big and you're doing so many things, and so say as somebody who's been working and been on the other end, to somebody who would potentially tomorrow want to start something of their own, it how do you make this happen? Because now you might have thousands of employees. Now you're a brand that's nationwide, so very well known, and making sure that culture is translated to literally everything that you're doing is how does that happen, and is it so easy?
Um, Honestly, it feels easy because it came naturally to us. I don't remember a day when I put in an extra effort to build our culture. It just happened to be a happy place.
It's a part of you.
It's part of us, yes, because I think culture goes wrong when in the difficult situations you're not able to take the pressure. You react a certain way under pressure. You speak a certain way when you're feeling the heat. Both Neha and I, we end up laughing. And we can really laugh a lot at ourselves, at other people, with other people. So then sort of the situation sort of it diffuses, right? So you're not taking yourself too seriously. And so that became the vibe in our office, that you're not taking yourself too seriously. And it just became on its own. I think whoever joined us sort of helped because they were also as chill. And thankfully at Clovia, people have really stayed around. So our core mid-level management, entire team, they've not left us. So they're all 8 years, 10 years into the system. Even if they've left, they've come back in 6 months. So when so many older people are in the system, they carry it. So whoever joins new just picks up the same vibe.
Hire me, please. I want to be happy too. You're just being here, having this conversation is making me so happy.
I'm glad.
I think I'm going to take this through my day today.
Yeah, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Neha and I say this to a lot of people that glad we could be your joke of the day.
And how do they react to that?
People mostly love it.
As they should. I think both of you are lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
How was growing up in Haridwar?
It was a most wonderful experience. A small town like no other. So I grew up in BHL campus, okay? And it's full of engineers, like so many engineers. It's all engineers. And then I became a rebel and decided to be a CA in a world of engineers. So it wasn't seen kindly. But, you're growing up in a community where the world is raising you. It's not just your parents. And my parents, thankfully, had a very, very stable marriage. They're a solid team. They're so, I don't know how, they are so in love with each other even today. But they bring a certain amount of stability to my world. Emotional anchor. That a lot can go wrong in life, but they'll catch you. And as independent as they tried to make me, I'm so dependent that I still live with them. Not in the same house, in a different house, but yeah, I live in the same apartment complex. But speaking of Haridwar, so we didn't have a theatre. So we had a community theatre wherein we would get movies coming in and we would have to wait months and months and months. So when they would finish their run in the local theatres out there, then it would come to us. But even then, it was the most wonderful thing. And we had this club where we could go swimming and we could play. I don't know, so many people who would grow up in a small town who would have access to a Olympic-size swimming pool, to a tennis court, to a badminton court, to a table tennis, coaching. And I went to DPS there from a school perspective. Thank God that we had a DPS there. And it was, your teachers were also your evening, people, because your parents were also socializing with them. So any complaint would just... But it was also the most wonderful experience. I learned how to drive a car in class 8th.
What?
Yeah, I know. License who? Maturity what? Like what? Why?
How are you allowed to do that?
I know why. I also questioned my parents. Why? But it was just the norm. And I was taught how to ride a scooter later than how to ride a car. And we would cycle to school. And it was, and by the way, my father tried to teach me how to drive, but one session with him and I was done. Then my mother taught me how to drive. But scooter, actually, a neighbor taught me. Swimming, a neighbor taught me. And I learned swimming in the most comic way that anyone ever can.
What's that?
So I was in class 6th and we had this pool, of course. And in the evening, all kids would just show up to play in the pool. We were not really there to swim. Who wanted to swim? We just wanted to play in the pool. And he saw and he said, why are you playing in the pool and not swimming? And he was like the most brilliant swimmer, really. So he just picked me up from the neck like this. Just like grabbed me like this, walked me to the diving board and dropped me.
What?
And obviously I started to cry. I'm in class 6th. I am barely there, lanky, stupid
That's
kid.
my worst nightmare.
I know. And the diving board was, I think, in my mind it was 18 feet, but people tell me it was 13 feet or 12 feet or something. But the pool was deep. Pool was deep to 13 feet for sure. And he obviously dropped me at the deep end.
Oh, God.
And I came back and I was still crying. So he didn't like it. So he just dropped me again and dropped me again. And I think he dropped me 3-4 times. And this was not happening to anyone else, by the way. It was only happening to me because he was my neighbor. And obviously we were very close family friends. So I grew up around him. And then towards the end of it, I felt, मैं सीख लेती हूँ यार, मैं swimming सीख लेती हूँ, इससे तो better ही होगा. So I just said, okay, I will learn swimming right now. And I learned swimming. I'm like, okay, I will swim. Whatever you need me to do, I will do it right now.
Oh, God.
That's how I learned swimming. So, you grow up around such amazing experiences that it's just the most fun upbringing one can ever imagine.
But जब वो आपको नीचे फेंक रहे थे, तो how are you getting back? What was happening?
What throws you back up? I think you don't drown so easily. It looks easy in the movies. You don't drown so easily. What sort of throws you back up? Or so I think. I honestly don't know. I came up. I have no idea how. Survival instincts, perhaps.
I have 2 of the worst swimming lessons gone wrong kind of cases. एक बार मेरे को रस्सी बांध के कमर पे फेंक दिया
My God.
पानी में, और मुझे स्विमिंग नहीं आती, तो मैं तो जो where you spit, there's the corner. No, I held on that corner and I didn't let go. I was like, no, मेरे को ऊपर खींचो वरना मैं नहीं निकलूंगी यहाँ से. That was one. And second was, I think this was in Springdale School summer vacation. Some summer camp was happening. This girl, because she was drowning, to get up, उसने पूरा मुझे सर से नीचे पानी में घुसेड़ दिया.
Oh my God.
और फिर मैं ऊपर नहीं आ पा रही थी, और पता नहीं फिर then I held some other girl's swimming costume to get up. Then after that, I haven't had the guts to be in the swimming pool ever. But
oh my God. I'm sorry you had these experiences. But honestly, whenever I tell anyone that I learned swimming like this, anyone and everyone says, oh, what a traumatic experience. But no! It was the most fun.
I was about to say that. How did you not think it was traumatic?
It was no trauma. I was really, obviously we were neighbors for the longest period of time. I was really close to Bhaiya and he was, I don't know how many years older than me, and he was this tall person, like full built up and all of that. He would just pick me up and drop me. And he was allowed to do that because, that's how, neighbors become siblings, so to speak. And it was really the most amazing time.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, our school was so brilliant. I was telling this story to my husband yesterday. So, obviously in a world of engineers, you're supposed to take science.
Mm-hmm.
So I took science in class 11th. But I knew I wanted to be a CA. Why I knew I wanted to be a CA is also very stupid. But I knew I wanted to be a CA, but I actually didn't know that I have to study commerce to be a CA, because that's how stupid you are when you're at that age. So I knew that I wanted to be a CA, and I still took science. And the minute I started my science journey in class 11, class 11 is anyway a shock. You don't know what's about to hit you in terms of studies. And then chemistry hit me. Oh my God. I got slapped in the face
What?
By chemistry and physics.
Okay.
Not literally.
Like another.
You know those memes where a person is hanging by the equation? I was that person. I scored so horribly.
Did
And
you fail?
of course.
I also did.
Of course I failed. And after half yearlies, I started to tell my parents, but I never wanted to do science. I wanted to do commerce. Why have you put me in science? And perhaps that was the only thing that I'd actually agreed to what my parents suggested. Otherwise, I'm sort of a rebel when it comes to decisions. And they didn't agree. They said, okay, now to ab le liya, ab to change ho bhi nahi sakta hoga. So I went to the principal. I fought that I want to study commerce. And where does the rule say that you can't shift post half yearlies? Where is the rule for it? And because I was so relentless, I went to his office, I think, every week. And I think he also sympathized with my situation because I was really not doing well in science. And I don't know what change of heart he had at some point. But, and maybe he was just throwing a challenge our way because he thought that we'll not make it. So in February of class 11th, he threw this challenge our way that if you take commerce half yearlies again, and I'll give you a week's time to study. And if you pass, I'll make you move to commerce. And I passed.
Wow.
So because I passed, so almost entirety of my 11th, I did science, and 12th, I did commerce. And you tell me another school where you can do this. You tell me another town where you can do this, where you can pull this. And because I became such a rebel, there was, after me, 3-4 of my other friends also joined me in this coup. And all of us moved to commerce. It was so great. I'm so glad I did that. Otherwise, science would have ruined me.
Yeah. Thank God you did that, and then you are who you are today.
Yeah, thank God I became a CA. Otherwise, it would have been for nothing. It would have really fallen flat on my face.
No, I'm still sure that it would have led to something else.
I know. Yeah, we can talk of that hypothetical, but I'm glad I did that.
You grow around so many girls or women around you.
Yeah.
And you said that's a part of what makes you happy.
Yeah,
How is that?
I am a some product of all the women around me. So I was brought up by 3 mothers. So my mother, of course, my grandmother started to live with us when I was in class, I think 8th. And then my great-grandmother also started to live with us when I was in class 9th. So my papa's nanny also shifted with us. So my grandmother had 6 sisters on one side and 7 on the other. So she had a lot of sisters coming our way. And because my great-grandmother used to live with us, everyone would come home. And these were the most amazing women. My mom learned how to drive when I was in class 1, or maybe I was just in 87, 88. Not many women were driving then. And she decided that she wanted to learn how to drive because she didn't want to be dependent on my father to go to the bank, to go grocery shopping, to go, for basic things. So she decided, I think we bought a car in 87 and my mother learned it the next year. My grandmother learned how to operate a computer in the 90s.
Wow.
And she was already in her 70s by then. And she decided that, this seems to be the new thing and I should learn. So she found a tutor. She got a computer at home and she learned how to, operate a computer. And even today, one of my cousin daddies, she runs a school in Dehradun. It's for young girls. They come from their villages and they come here to study. So she sponsors their education. They stay with her for till 12th class. And she ensures that they also learn how to survive in outside world. So she helps them learn Excel. She helps them learn cooking and, so many other skills that you should have in life. She will also teach them that. She runs a school and she's almost 83 today. And the school survives largely on donations. She's now making YouTube videos at 83 to promote her school. I don't know any other... Cool. I don't know any other woman who can do that. So all my buas were teachers, all my Mausi is a doctor. So these women were really the go-getters. They just made it happen for themselves in a time when no one was helping them. And that has really it has sort of made me who I am. If they had not given me that kind of courage, or they're not given me this casual thought that you can be who you want to be. And it wasn't force fed. They were living it. So I think I am who I am because they were such go-getters.
Is it one of the reasons why you also love celebrating failures?
Yeah.
I have never seen a founder who'd been so open about saying that I love both failures and wins
Yeah.
alike, and it's just the same for me.
Yeah, it is. It is. When you do CA, you learn how to fail. You will have to fail. There are far and few who will clear it in their first attempt. I topped my school, and when I came to Delhi for college, I realized it means nothing here. My 86% means nothing here. Did I have 86? Something like that. 84, 82. It could be anything.
Delhi University.
Yes, for Delhi University. And it meant nothing. It was peanuts. No college was willing to give me admission at that percentage. And I was a topper in school. So then what? It doesn't equate. And I realized that every time you enter a new world, your entire being sort of changes. You could be an absolute bacha in one, but you're starting from scratch the next minute. So when you're starting from scratch the next minute, failures don't really matter so much. And you can fail all you want. And you should. Because if you're just constantly succeeding, where's the fun in it? Wouldn't it get boring without any challenges, without any ups and downs? So as long as you're willing to learn from your failures, I think it's the most... you should fail a little bit.
But how does one do that? How do I get comfortable with failing? Because it's so daunting. Tomorrow, if something doesn't work, or everybody, I think all of us kind of process things in a way that our lives depend upon, say, a certain thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but it actually doesn't, no? So I work out now. And when I work out, I'm obviously feeling dead every minute. And every set, I tell myself, मर थोड़ी जाऊंगी यार, कर लेती हूँ, मर थोड़ी जाऊंगी. And that's the reality of life. मर थोड़ी जाओगे यार, fail ही तो हुए हो. ये कोई बड़ी बात तो नहीं हो गई होगी. You have your family intact, you have your friends intact, you have your life intact. What changed? You just failed in one scenario. Big deal. Does it really matter so much? I don't think it does. It's just one failure. It's just one blip in a very long journey.
True.
So,
I agree.
and I think we take ourselves too seriously. And that's why failure becomes very daunting. And I do understand that it sets you back. You have to pick yourself up. You have to pick up your energy. You have to pick up your pace all over again. You have to tell yourself, you have to motivate yourself to show up again. All of that fair. But, and you should also take a day to really, cry it out. Take a day to cry it out. Take a day to rant. But beyond that, just get up and move on. Because that failure meant only that much. It wasn't beyond that.
That makes so much sense. It really does feel like I'm talking to my older sister.
Yeah.
Yes. If somebody today had to start a business like Clovia, how do they do that? Is there any scope or any new bits that people can, which the world's not registering and they can get to?
Do you mean
Right
in
now.
lingerie specifically?
Yes, in lingerie specifically.
Yeah, why not? There's still scope for the market. The market size is really, really big. And I'll not quote numbers because they don't really matter. But the market is big enough for a new entrant to come in. And any business, it's not just specific to lingerie, but any new business that you think of, either you identify a problem that exists and either there's no solution for it, you solve a new problem, or you solve the same problem but in a different manner. So if today, like Underneath came and they talked more of shapewear and they talked more of seamless products.
Yes.
Similarly, so many new brands can come. There's DiChica, which is very beginner, teenage specific brand. So you can find your niches. on what you want to build. Of course, with every new entrant, market becomes more and more difficult because there's obviously already legacy players. When we entered, there were legacy players. So we found a new way. We found a new entrance because we started to sell online first, and these legacy players were not selling online. Online market didn't exist, so it sort of got created while we were building Clovia. So for anyone to enter a similar space, why not? One should, but they should just find a new niche or find a new market or find a new way of saying the same thing.
I've seen a lot of swimwear brands coming up. That I think is a new right now. And also there were two brands that I also loved in this space. One was Taylor and Circus.
Yeah.
And then there was a similar brand that went on Shark Tank after Bummer.
Yeah.
But I personally used Taylor and Circus, and I was like, oh my God, they're non-sexualizing underwear.
Yeah.
And that's what I really loved. I was like, that's what you want to attach yourself to. And I somehow I like, you feel like a kid again. And
I love their prints.
Yeah, so that was very cool. I don't know what they're doing right now, and
they're still in business.
Yeah, they're still in business, but in terms of growth, etc., I'm not very sure where they're at. But that also, I think, is a very interesting concept.
Absolutely. Both Bummer, Taylor and Circus did wonderfully well in their space. They found a new niche. The only problem with what you said about swimwear as a concept, that these become too small a niches. That, if you're just building swimwear as a category for Clovia is about 2% of our overall sale. Swimwear as a category for Myntra is also perhaps a percentage point, maybe slightly bigger. I don't have the number, but it'll be just that. So when you pick up a super niche, it just becomes difficult to scale beyond a point. You will obviously cross 0 to 1 journey. You'll also maybe become profitable because, depends on how you're building the business and so on. But then it may come to a point where you're not able to scale beyond a point because then you'll have to go for category expansion. Also, you should enter a category which is more widely distributed. And swimwear, a girl would have 1, 2 crazy ones like me, would have 10. But beyond that, not really, right?
Yeah, because there aren't enough beaches in the country to go to.
Yeah. You're not buying a new swimwear for every vacation, so to speak. And even if you are, then also it's a once in a year purchase, right? If you're swimming in an apartment complex, if you're swimming in a society club sort of a thing, then the swimwear you're buying for your vacation is different from your swimwear in an apartment 100%. Complex and so on. But you're still not buying multiple pieces. So, you will struggle for repeat. But if you're a bra company like Clovia, then you need bras for different occasions. So at Clovia, we do this, that we make bras for 6 life stages and 9 body types. 6 life stages being beginners, teen, your youth, bridal, maternity, maturity, and seniority. So different life stages, you need different products. You need a beginner bra, you need a padded camisole. Then when you're in your college, you need all the bralettes, you need fashion, you need a lot of colors, prints. You need strapless, backless for all your requirements. And when you get married or, you go through that bridal journey, you need more lace, very sexy, this, that. Maternity has its own requirements. And then maturity is when you need, full figure bras. Your muscles have started to give up on you. So you need extra support, extra comfort. You'll start to look for more cotton-based products. You'll start to look for inner elastics so that, your skin is not coming in contact with any elastics. And then you move towards seniority, wherein you don't want to reach for hook and eye. You want to wear maybe a front open. Maybe you want to wear a slip-on. And more easygoing product. So different life stages and different products for those life stages. So, and because of that, you're able to get a customer to come back to you over and over again. So you're able to capture a bigger part of her shelf life, shelf space, and a bigger part of her underwear drawer. Picking up a really small niche becomes tough.
How do you think has India evolved in the entire space? Because I feel that it takes a certain level of maturity to understand a need that, bras need to be for specific occasions, different needs, etc. At the time when I was growing up, if you're young, you'll wear a sports bra. If you're or slightly older, then you'd wear a hooked bra. That's that. That's it. It's white and it's black, or it's ब्लैक भी के बारे में भी एक बहुत बड़े व्हाट्सएप फॉरवर्ड्स होते थे, ब्लैक ब्रा पहनने से कैंसर होता है धूप में. हाँ, और धूप में अगर आप ब्लैक ब्रा पहन के चले जाओगे, ऑल द ब्लैक टॉक्सिन्स विल गेट इनटू योर बॉडी एंड
no science behind this.
So my mom, she actually eliminated literally every black bra in my closet.
Oh my
She's
God,
like,
we're a country of absolute taboos.
uh-huh.
No, it was a daunting task to break these taboos, to make lingerie cool. And lingerie needed a lot of education. What you're speaking of is exactly what we wanted to solve. Women didn't know their sizes. There were a lot of myths. People didn't know that they can wear underwire and not really, it makes no difference. They didn't know that you're supposed to wear a skin color bra under your whites, not really a white color bra. So people were okay with the discomfort that a bra brought them. And it needed a lot of education that bra can be comfortable and it can be fashionable, and you should be wearing a certain kind under a certain outerwear. But education is also boring. So and it can become really preachy. So we didn't want to be the boring people. I think we've established that we are not boring people. So if you interact with us in our socials, you will see that we talk a lot about the education piece, but we talk about it in a fun manner, like two girls would speak to each other. For example, going braless the minute you enter your household. We celebrated that. Why not? You should go braless at home. But if you want to go braless at home and you do live in a, you don't live in a nuclear setup, then we will give you a night suit which has a over layer or which has a gather here, so that even when you're going braless, it doesn't appear to be, it doesn't become obvious.
Yeah.
So these kind of small things we did, and we talked a lot about it on socials and in a cool, happy, fun manner, which then girls started to come and interact with us on socials and our customer care center, and they started to tell their problems, and we were able to solve for it. And we were able to remove the taboo and make lingerie cool. So we made the conversations about lingerie cool. So a lot of people, a lot of men also today we meet who say, we love your socials. Because we made the conversation cool and took away the taboo from it.
True, and I think it's a perfect problem statement. I remember Pankaj talking about one of your ads where it's about the same thing, taking off the bra, and then so people were, I think you got a lot of advice saying, why are you talking about taking out your product? Why is it not the other way around?
Yeah, but why not? Why not? It's the most natural thing. It's the one thing that all of us look forward to. Girls constantly talk about it. So why? We're a girl's girl.
Yeah,
we are your friend. So we don't want to do or say anything which is not the reality. The reality is that you do want to take out your bra the minute you enter the house.
Correct.
The reality is that when you're getting up, when you're getting ready in the morning, you look at yourself. This is the first thing that goes on. And when you look at yourself, it sort of sets the tone of your day. If you're wearing really granny underwear, then you feel that way. If you're wearing a really sexy oomph bra, you feel that way. It sets the tone of your day. If underwear is digging into your skin the entire day, it's like you know that you are wearing a torn sock. No one else knows, but it's playing in your head the entire day. So we wanted to solve for things that we know that we as women go through the whole day.
True.
So now in panties, legacy brands, a lot of other brands, they all made bikinis and hipsters and mid-waist hipsters. But fact of the matter is that even the skinniest of girl today has a small paunch. And she would just love for it to just be tucked in. She would just love for it, little bit of fabric to be there. So we started to make high-waist hipsters. And they sell like hotcakes. Because the minute you wear it and something really small is just tucking your stomach in. It's not a shapewear. It's not giving you any compression. It's just something is putting you in. And women love it, of course.
And that's what you want.
That's what we want, yeah.
It's such a simple thing, but it really means a lot, right?
Yeah.
Do you think young founders today should run after investments? Or
Depends on if you have money or not. They should seek investment to grow their business, not as a symbol of validation. It's not validation at all. At the end of the day, you are taking someone's money. And the minute you take someone's money, that someone is really going to come after you. So they're at some point going to hound you for returns. So anyway, you're working for the world. The entire idea of working for yourself is so overrated. You're not working for yourself at all. You're working for the people's salary that are working with you. You're working to pay the guard at office. You're working for not for yourself at all. So, and if you want to seek investment, it should only be to scale your business, to grow your business, because you don't have your own money, or you've chosen not to deploy your own money. But it should not be a symbol of validation in any form or manner.
And if I were to ask you as an investor, what do you look for in a business when you're investing?
Depends on the scale of the business, honestly. When it's a pre-seed, a lot of people laugh, pre-reality business. Then you look for, founder traits. That do you have the grit? Do you have the perseverance? Are you okay with failures? Because you're going to fail a lot over the course of your journey. Are you going to be okay with challenges? So you try and ask a couple of tough questions. Do they get defensive, or are they able to, give you answers? So a lot depends on how the founder comes. And of course, do you think that there is credibility to the idea, or is just pre-reality? If you're a business at scale, then you also look at, do they know their numbers? Are the numbers healthy for that kind of a industry? Do they have repeats? For example, my husband's business, he has a dog food brand. It's called BLEP, BLEP. His entire business depends on repeats. Because if his end customer is liking the food, the parent is going to come and buy again. He has 89% repeat in his business.
That's crazy.
I know. Because
89% is insane.
It is insane. His NPS is through the roof. It is 94% NPS. So
crazy.
When you come across such kind of businesses, you want to jump in instantly. You don't want to miss that bus. And a lot of other traits you look for, which are those are soft skills. They cannot be quantified, so to speak. But you look for, are they able to build a team? Are they able to lead with a purpose? Are they clear on their own idea? Are they able to sell what they're selling? Are they, in the first 30 seconds of your meeting with them, are they able to tell you with clarity what they intend to make? Because at the end of the day, in this very long journey, clarity of what they set out to make or set out to build is really the differentiator. And a lot of people will pivot through this journey, but at least that clarity should be there in the beginning.
I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people who are going to start their business tomorrow.
I really love people who know their numbers. If they know their P&L, if they know their cash flow, if they're able to sell, if they're able to talk numbers, I hate it when people come and say, "Acha chal raha hai." What do you mean by acha? Acha is not quantifiable. Acha is not a thing. Acha could be 10 rupee for me. Acha could be 100 rupee for you.
True.
So, but when you come and tell me an exact number on how well you're doing, and you're able to quote those numbers to me, then it shows that you're looking at your numbers. You're not delusional that you're just building a brand. You're actually into the business.
you're the co-founder. आप generally आपका दिन कैसा जाता है? Because you're also the chief growth officer. और मुझे लगता है कि it's one of the hard tasks. Growth संभालना is a lot more than what we see on paper, right? So how is that for you?
So I live two parallel lives. I am very, very disciplined when it comes to work. And I'm extremely indisciplined when it comes to my personal life. So I will never wake up on time. My trainer would arrive at 8:30. I would show up for it at 8:45. I'm always running late. But when it comes to work, I am on time. If there is a meeting at 3, I will show up at 3. If there is a conversation that needs to be done today, I will do it today. And I honestly don't know why it came to be like this, or why I became like this. But I do feel that growing up, I was bullied a lot. And over the course of years, I realized that my career is one thing that people can't bully me for, because it's my own. I've built it. I've created it with my own grit and perseverance. There is nothing that someone can take away from me when it comes to my work.
True.
No one can come and tell me, oh, you didn't do this for Clovia, or you didn't do this at PwC, or you didn't, perform. No, because that's just, they can't, I didn't want to give anyone a chance to take that away from me in any form or manner. So when I show up at work, I am a different person. I show up with all of me. I show up for work. So when you're showing up for work and you love what you're doing because it's your entire personality, then it shows in your work. Then you're able to scale the brand. You're able to, create a team that delivers. And I absolutely love my team. Love. They're the best people that I could have found to build what I did for Clovia. I've never looked for education when it comes to team. So I honestly wouldn't know what my team's education is. I have no idea. A lot of times, in fact, I've asked later, 2 years hence, 5 years hence, that did you do, what did you study? Like, I wouldn't even know if they were 12th pass. I do check for logical reasoning. Or I do check for that, do they need it enough? Does it make a difference in their life? Are they going to show up for work? And my entire team shows up every day. I ask very basic questions like, what is 20% of 30? Like, are you able to apply yourself in that interview and tell me the answer? And a lot of people don't. They're not able to. There was this one girl I remember, and she still works with us. She got so confused that, what is this question? Kya answer dena hai? And she started to look at the calculator in that meeting room. I said, okay, you can use the calculator. And then she was so nervous. She could not even use it with the calculator. She could not calculate. And then I was like, what has happened? I am nervous. I said, but then I like the honesty. And she got hired. Because when I showed her that this was a very simple math question, she was able to take it. She was able to learn it in that minute and said, I got very, very nervous. And she's one of the better performing people today. So what my day looks like, I work out in the morning. And my doctor tells me I have to work out every alternate day. But because I'm so indisciplined, I've decided to work out every day. Because if I show up every day, then there's no break. Nothing happening. I only take a break the days when I simply can't show up. When my body is given up on me. I go to work. I am usually at work for about 9-10 hours. When I'm at work, I'm not a person who takes chai breaks, coffee breaks, gossip breaks. I'm not a person who, just lounges around. There's no break happening. I don't do personal conversations during work hours. I don't really take phone calls or anything really. When I'm at work, I'm at work. I'm very focused. And then I have a whole host of friends. I love meeting my friends. They keep me sane. That's also the only exception I make during office hours, that I do indulge in the group chat. It's called, right now our group name is Hoarders, because clearly we're indulging in too much shopping. But the girls keep me sane, so I hang out with them, or of course, I live with family, so I meet my parents in the evening, or I do something with Neil, who's my nephew. Yeah, pretty much that.
Do you all live in the same compound?
Yeah. We
What?
do live in the same apartment complex. Neha and I are only 4 floors apart. So, in fact, I wake up at 6:30 because I have to give tiffin to Neil. So, he likes what I cook.
Huh.
I only cook for him. I don't cook for anyone else.
Huh.
I don't cook for myself. I've never cooked in a day in my life. It's only for him that he likes my cooking. So, I show up. So 3 days a week, sort of, or sometimes 4. I give him tiffin. So I wake up at 6:30, then I give him tiffin at 7:08 a.m. because the bus comes then.
That's so cute.
Yeah, but it's the most fun times because we all live together, so we are able to do things together in the evening. And you don't really have to look outside. You don't have to really go travel all the way to Gurgaon to meet your friends or find fun. You can just find fun in your own space.
Also, the perks of living in Noida.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
That's a lot of space that you're getting.
Yeah,
just
and
to
now my
travel.
cousin brother has also shifted. So
Oh,
it's really, it's going to be Zilla. Will karo ghoshat.
you work for 10 hours, which is, I don't know, I think it's quite a lot. But how do you get time with family and to do all these
I
wonderful
work
things?
with family, so it's very easy to find time for family.
But that's just Neha, no?
Yeah, that's just
Neha
Neha.
and Pankaj.
So Neha and Pankaj, anyway, we do hang out during office hours. Also, sometimes we eat lunch together or get a hot chocolate fudge together on the day of failures. But I'm able to meet my parents quite often because, I don't have to make the travel. I can just, before office, I can go and hang out with them for a half an hour or post work. I eat dinner with them a lot of days because I don't like when my maid is cooked and so on. So I'm able to find the time. And 10 hours it's not every day 10 hours. Some days it's not even 4 hours. Some days it's 6 hours. Some days it depends on how the
Keeps
day
on
is looking.
fluctuating.
Yeah, it depends on how the day is going. And I think when you're in business, that gives you get that flexibility that you can show up for work at your own time and do it in your own time, and you can still be on vacation and still be working and take that break. So I'm able to do all of that. So like very recently I went to Bahrain for F1.
I saw.
I loved it. Oh my God, what an experience. What an experience. I was working when I was getting married. During my mehendi, I remember I was taking phone calls. And it didn't feel like a thing because when you're enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't really matter. So I think I was sitting at the mandap when I got a phone call, or I was sitting like it was really awkward. Yeah, because it was COVID times when I got married. So we were in this hyper space where we needed to save the business, of course. We had to keep the cash flows running. And it's the most amazing story. I'll tell you about it. So I was working then, and it didn't feel like a thing because when you love what you're doing, it doesn't really make a difference.
How did you meet your husband?
I met him through Jeevan Sathi. I
Shout out
friend-zoned
Jeevan
him.
Sathi.
I met him through Jeevan Sathi. I friend-zoned him and he told me, I don't need more friends. I have enough friends. I am in this to marry. Then we sort of lost track, and it's only February 2020 that we started to speak again. But not really speak because none of us had the time. And then COVID happened. And during COVID, I would get free at about 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And because back then he used to work with the government. So he had a pass. So during curfew, he could come and meet me. He would come and meet me at 1 a.m. We would just sit and chill in the car. We would just take a walk. He lost a lot of weight because we were constantly walking. And even then, marriage wasn't on my mind. It's only, I think, sometime in mid-June, I had the target to get married that year. And at some point, he said that we could get married. And I was like, Achha, this guy is willing to get married to me. Oh, I can scam him. And then I said, okay, let's get married. So I told him, I think on the 21st June that we should get married. And 5th July, we were married.
That's
because
your
I didn't want to
birthday.
give him time to realize what a crazy, wild child I am. So it was the most... And I told my father that, I think I've decided to get married. And he was over the moon. My mother was still in the kitchen. She came, what? She's saying she can get married. They just started to make phone calls. My buas, my mausies, my mamas, everyone is getting phone calls. And half an hour he comes and says, marry who? I was like, you could have asked that question before announcing it to the world. And
True.
it really, to them, what mattered was that I decided to get married. Because obviously I was 34 when I decided to get married. And being a baniya that I am, my parents were in marriage market for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was told that as soon as you go to do your graduation, then that is when we are going to get you married. So I ran away. Like, I am not doing this.
I know.
I am not doing this. I'm a baby. Babies can't get married.
I know. And because Neha didn't really set the right example, she went ahead and got married at 23. My parents tried to panic at 25. And then they sort of subsided also at 28, 29. That, okay, ab to jab hoga, jab dekha jayega. Ab shayad yehi hai type ka. The trauma that they experienced. And when finally I decided to get married, they really didn't want to give us time to think about it. So our parents met, and even then, our parents met, and my father goes and so my mother-in-law is a Hindi teacher. So my parents go meet them and says, my daughter is a workaholic. Now she's a Hindi teacher, okay? She knows holic. She heard holic and she said alcoholic. Now for the next 2 hours, the entire conversation, whatever my father said, she put it in that context. My father said she has a lot of guy friends. अब लड़के ही तो होंगे ही फिर, वरना कैसे दारू पिएगी? My father said she comes and goes at late hours. Of course. इतना दारू पियोगे तो कब आओगे, कब जाओगे? And my father says, we तो don't see her during the weekdays. We only meet her on the weekends because she's never home. Obviously. And then my mother-in-law is not really saying anything. And she's just absorbing it all and thinking, हाँ, अब इतना दारू पिएगी तो पूरे दिन तो नहीं मिल पाएगी, वीकेंड पे ही उठ पाएगी. लड़के दोस्त भी होंगे, लड़कियां तो नहीं दारू पिला रही होंगी, लड़के ही पिला रहे होंगे. And she's just putting everything in workaholic and alcoholic context. And then he goes and tells Ravi, my husband's name is Ravi, he tells, my daughter is a terrorist. He's like, uncle, मैं तो already हाँ बोल चुका हूँ, आप मुझे डरा क्यों रहे हो? मतलब आपका problem क्या है? And then my parents come home and for a change, Ravi's parents didn't say anything to him for 2 hours. And Ravi said, okay, something has changed because otherwise any girl I would meet, they would just flip. Then his mother comes to him 2 hours later and says, कितना ही पी लेती होगी?
एक बोतल दो बोतल.
In what context कितना पी लेती होगी? नहीं, उसके father कह रहे थे वो holic है. Workaholic, work काम बहुत करती है. And imagine the desperation. She was still willing to get her son married to a alcoholic. She was willing to do that.
Thank God it was just workaholic otherwise.
Yeah, and when we finally met to, like the entire family met to seal the deal, sort of, you know, that roka thing that you do. After a bit, my mother-in-law goes and asks, "Beta, तुम्हारा नाम क्या है?" मेरा नाम सौम्या है. You've already sealed the deal with me. Then she goes to my parents. आपका नाम क्या है? And no one knew anything about each other. No one knew really. Ravi and I obviously had gotten to know each other a little bit, but we just decided to get married. We took the plunge, and that's why I was also working during my wedding because it wasn't planned. I had no time. On 23rd or 24th of June is when we decided to get married, and 5th July we got married. So we didn't really have the time to, and because it was a COVID wedding, we didn't have people coming to help and so on. And in 2020, that was the peak COVID time. People were most scared when the
second
cases
wave.
weren't really
Yeah.
happening. So it
Yeah.
was the peak scary time. So we had just 46 people at our wedding.
That's what I was wondering. Who gets married on 5th July? Generally, weddings happen in either November or earlier.
I know Ravi did want to wait till November. But then he would have really gotten to know me. So I wanted to scam him fast.
Now that he's found out, what do you guys like to do together? How do you like to spend your time?
Both of us like driving. So we do talk the most when we are in a car together. He's also building a business. So we do end up talking a lot about that. He's quite into sports. So he likes to play tennis. I tried. But I had the hand-eye coordination of a toddler. So I couldn't really get to play tennis. He's an intellectual. I'm a frivolous person. So he talks economics and like worldly things and so on. And I talk, tujhe pata hai usne kya kiya? So we sort of match somewhere in the middle.
But that's such an interesting energy. Did he take you to Bahrain?
No,
does he-
that I decided that, but we do enjoy F1 together. So we've F1 was a thing that neither one of us were following before we got married. So we started to follow it together. So we wanted to do that, yeah. But he doesn't like to take time away from work right now because he's only 2 years into his journey as a business creator.
He was a doctor before this, right?
No. He's not a doctor. He was in public policy. So he used to work with Prashant Kishore and then CM of Punjab and so on. So he was in public policy.
There's so many things that are common about us. I really want to go back to what you said about how your work gives you identity. I think that's such a hyper independent. I mean, that's a part of a lot of girls' identity. But
Yeah.
the same dialogue I tell everybody, like, nobody gives you as much as your work gives you.
It pays for everything in your life.
And yes, and it's the only thing that also it's like an equal. How much it's going to demand, it's going to give you back.
Yeah.
Apart from anything else, nothing is certain.
Work is my religion. So a lot of people do follow, gurus and different things. But for me, work is my religion. That's one thing that I'm really true to. I will not falter at work. I will not cheat on my work. And that's why I think I show up so religiously for work. Work is my absolute true religion because that's one thing that I created for myself. No one else did. And it has given me more back.
Correct. I can't tell you how much do I relate to it. And these are the exact words that I say in my life.
Oh, wow.
And even my partner is doing public policy. And there's so many other things that are common. It's so strange
I think
just hearing
it
everything.
started with our name.
Yeah, true. And just love that.
Yeah. You go to a hotel, you're in the washroom, you're looking at your hair, you're not sure if it's looking the right way. But a girl would just walk in and say, "Oh my God, I love what you're wearing. I love your earrings. I love your hair. I love your shoes." And it's just a back and forth of what they love about each other.
True.
And it's not that they need to do it. It just comes naturally to us. And nothing else motivates you in life as much as that does.
Yes,
You come out so hyped.
Yes, it's so hyped. And I think it's the girls around you that make you to be who you are in life.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's just so lovely because whenever I talk to my girls, I told you this podcast was named by one of my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And I think that just keeps you going a certain way. Right?
Absolutely.
Especially on bad days. I think good days are great, but some bad days, you can really just share with your girlfriends.
Absolutely. They make your Delulu their own. they tell you absolute random things in life. You could be really tensed about something, like really, really tensed, but they will say something so random in that time that you would feel, what? What was I even thinking, and what are you saying? What? And you're just distracted then. And they'll send you the most random memes. So they make your day. They can really make or break your day.
Yeah, they can hate the people that you hate. They
Oh
can
my
love the people
God.
that you love.
Hate them like how? You don't hate them as much as they hate.
आपकी किसी से लड़ाई हो गई, कल किसी से वापस उससे जाके पैच अप हो जाता है, but your girlfriends are like, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you thinking?
Absolutely. They are the board of your life.
Yeah, I think एक तरीके से they are your moral compass also.
Absolutely. If you do cross a few lines here and there, at some point they will tell you, बाद में मजा नहीं आया.
True.
So they have a way of telling you that you went wrong, which doesn't put you in the defensive. It just tells you that, yeah, maybe I did something wrong. I should just correct it.
And some days they also shake you and tell you, okay, so maybe
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
you
absolutely.
really need to sit down and have this
Absolutely.
conversation.
You know that meme that if a girl fights with you and 5 minutes later she comes back and says more, the boat told her to. The boat didn't agree with the conclusion of that fight.
True. I agree. I think that reveals a secret also. So
Yeah, it does. It's a big revelation.
you get
But
to,
yeah, my girlfriends are the board of my life for anything, for look approvals, for vacation approvals, for anything. It's all them. Now, because I told you that my group name is Hoarder, so we also ask, all of us have to approve a buy. Whatever someone is buying, we have to approve it. Because obviously, clearly, we're overbuying.
आप लोग सब दिल्ली में ही रहते हो?
Yeah, thankfully.
Oh, that's how you get a chance to meet each other also.
Yeah. Oh, thank God. But not all of them. So some of them obviously live here. I'm very close to my school friends. So the friends that I grew up with and talk to almost on a daily basis here and there are my school friends. And then some friends I found during my CA time and then PWC. And, over the course of building Clovey also, I've found some incredible women that I've become very close to, and they've become sort of, you're supposed to have one best friend. I'm perhaps have 100, and I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have those 100.
Do you vacation with them?
I do. It's the best time. It is so fun.
You love traveling?
I do. I'm always planning a vacation in my head. I would research the itinerary. I would look at the tickets. I have no intention of going at that time. But I would plan it. So I do want to, see the world.
Any place you want to go this year?
So this year, I went to Bahrain. Then I took a girls' trip to Dubai. Very awkward location, I know. But it is what it is. When you're with the girls, it doesn't matter where you are.
But it helps with the shopping.
Not so much. I don't think we did very unhoarding things. Then I'm going to Korea in 3 weeks hence. Both Neha and I are going to Korea with one of our other sisters and Neil. So 3 sisters and one cute little baby.
That's a dream trip.
I know. So we're going to Korea. And then this year I'm taking my parents to Switzerland in August. So then December, Ravi and I also want to do one trip, just us, because when I'm going with Switzerland, it's a lot of family. So a lot of us are going together. So Ravi and I do want one trip, just us. So maybe sometime in November, December, we'll do that.
This is what dreams are made of. Wow.
But no, last year I traveled nowhere, nothing. I did nothing because Ravi had no time. So I just did one trip with my girlfriends to Singapore. That's it.
And I think now you're realizing what is it to date a founder or, be with the founder.
I know. It is. Yes. Because we're very different. We're at very different life stages. He's building it up. He's very, very busy. He's in office 7 days a week. And Blep is thankfully really growing. And it's becoming one of those most favorite brands for pet parents. But I'm in a very different life stage where things have become easy for me. So we have to constantly find that balance.
But it's nice. I like the headspace you're in.
Yeah. Always happy.
Yes. And I think that is something to be inspired by, to get inspired by as well. And I'm really, really inspired. Anything that you're watching or anything that you watched recently that you really liked?
Hacks. Have you seen Hacks?
Yes, I love Hacks.
Oh my god, I loved it. I loved it. And then there's this series called Girls.
Huh.
I loved. It is about a girl living in New York, trying to find her space. I think she's barely 21, 22 when she's just a wild child. And she has this group of girlfriends and it's so funny. I watch a lot of crime series. I am obsessed with MI and CIA and FBI kind of series. So I watch this a lot. Then I saw this series called Bad Sisters. So it's 5 sisters trying to murder one of their brother-in-laws.
What?
And now every brother-in-law I meet, I tell him, you know a series I saw? And we're a lot of sisters because we have a really big family. So we are a lot of sisters, you know, first cousin, second cousin, third cousins, and we are all close. So anyone I meet, I say, you know, there's this brother-in-law. But it was such a fun series. It shows the bonding the sisters have and how they will show up for each other, come what may. It's amazing. So Ravi is very scared that you're reading books all about murder. How to kill men, how to do this, how to do that. And then you're watching series which is Bad Sisters. I'm very scared for my life. And yeah, he should be on his toes.
Truly. And I've also started watching a lot of these true crime episodes on
I know.
YouTube. It's so interesting. Have you watched this YouTuber? She's called Mango Rotten or
Okay, no, I'm not.
Rotten Mango or something. I'm going to send you that
Yeah, send me
YouTube
the
channel.
link.
And it's very, very interesting. She breaks down crime and it's an hour long. So
Wow.
I don't know if you'll have that much time to
No, I will have the time. I watch a lot of TV.
but it's amazing. It's amazing. It's
Oh, wow.
super cool. I think so. I'm building a playlist on Spotify for Girls Who Get It, where
Really?
literally I'm going to take all the girls' recommendations and put it in a playlist. So it could
How
be like a
nice.
hype playlist for anybody who's
You're
listening.
doing God's work.
Thank you. So, any songs that you're listening to which should be on that list?
Very embarrassing question. Okay. So when I go to work, the volume in my car can put a DJ in Ibiza to shame. Because I listen to really loud, pumped up music, like Black Eyed Peas and whatnot. I don't know the lyrics of even a single song. But I will dance to it when I'm going to work. And if someone is supposed to enter my car, they get scared that what is happening in this car. And then I have to obviously lower down the volume and so on. So honestly, I don't have songs which I recommend, but I do love Rasputin. I love Makeba. I love Imagine Dragons. I love Mumford and Sons. So these are some songs that sort of I quite like. But largely I'm listening to music that you want to dance to.
Very interesting. I'm going to put that on the playlist.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you also reading any books?
So I'm a big reader, or I used to be. And so last year, I decided that now I have the time to read books again. And I've really let go of this hobby. But because you're hyper competitive, you turn that also into a thing. So I started to read in January. By, I think, May, I was done with 26 books. And that's obviously a lot. And then I had to stop because I was making that also into a target thing. That I now want to do 52 big books in 1 year. So I had to really slow down.
52 books.
Yeah, I know. Because I was already at 27 or 28 at that time. So I could have easily done that target. But then I realized that I'm not. At the back of my mind, I'm constantly thinking, oh, I have to meet that target. No. It was supposed to be a fun thing, so let it just be a fun thing. But I do read a lot. One of my favorite authors of all time is a guy called J.R. Mohinger. So he's not written too many books. He's written his own memoir, and then he's ghostwritten for Phil Knight, Shoe Dog. He's ghostwritten for Andre Agassi, Open. And I love those books in their individual capacity without realizing that who's the ghostwriter behind it. And there were commonalities. So he talks a lot about his life's contradiction. That he wants to do something, he loves it, but doesn't want to do it. So he talks a lot about the life's contradictions. That I want to meet my friends, I really want to do this, I really want to get there, but I don't want to get up in the morning. I don't want to take a bath and go. So the way he talks of those contradictions, really, it resonates with me. And he also talks of that you build something up in your head. That, you have a big meeting, you will build it up in your head. And when the meeting is done, you're at that stage still. The meeting is done, or that event is done. So he talked of that in Andre Agassi's book, that for a match, he's really hyped up. He's really, he's chasing it. He's looking forward to it, and he's building his mental stamina for that match. But the match is done. Match is played. He's won. Now what next? Because he's in that headspace still. So you suddenly feel a loss also, that you were building for something, you were looking forward to something, and then there's a sudden loss. And it takes you a couple of days to then bring your energy down or to find something else to look forward to. So I really like that piece where he spoke about that.
That's so interesting. So interesting.
But I do read a lot, and I'm a very frivolous reader. I like crime fiction. I like fiction. One of the books that I recently loved was it's by Frederick Ottoman. Is that no Frederick Backman? Ottoman. I got confused. Did you see the movie Otto?
No.
So it's about a elderly guy who lives alone, has lost his wife, and So he was.
I'm aware of the concept, but I haven't watched the movie.
Yeah. Yes. So he was. He wrote the book. The movie is based on a book. So he's written another book called My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologies. So it's about a 6-year-old Elsa who's lost her grandmother, and because they were so close together, her grandmother sends her on a treasure hunt via her letters to make her meet the people that were very important in her grandmother's life. And so she carries letters, she goes through this treasure hunt, and that also helps her find peace and process that grief that her grandmother is not there anymore. And it was, being a person who grew up around grandmothers, it was the most beautifully written book ever. The relationship that's shown between the two of them, it's really just beautiful. It's the most, heartwarming book that I've read in recent times.
And now you've put it, I also want to read it now.
Yes, please do. Please do. It's so beautiful. Then also read Otto. So Frederick Backman, any book he's written, read all of it. Anxious People and all of it. Just read it all.
Yes, I'm going to read. I'm going to start reading with one and then get to it slowly. But, thank you so much for doing this, Soumya.
Oh, loved it. Loved being here.
I also love doing this with you. I'm feeling so inspired. And before we go, we have hampers from women-owned businesses. One is by Nario, and the other one is by Friday Feeling. Both of these brands are women-owned.
Yeah, I know Nario. I didn't know Friday Feelings.
Yes, it's a skincare brand, and they are doing amazing stuff, both of them. So I just want to extend that to you.
Next time we should add Clovia to this sample.
Yes, we'll do that.
Oh, so cute. I love the name.
Yes.
Hot girls wear SPF.
And hot boys also wear SPF.
Oh, so fun. Oh, I love the stickers. We also do a lot of stickers at Clovia. Main character energy. I love this. We do a sticker which says, in my happy girl era. Love this. So,
and
thank you so much.
And this is Nario.
Yeah. Oh, I love the heart-shaped. Hot girl got back. so fun. Can I open this?
Yes.
Sorry. I want to show what she sent. It's millet muesli. Okay, very on brand for me right now because
Yes.
I'm trying to be healthy.
And if you know,
And classic muesli. Oh wow. I love it. I'm sorry, I'm playing with your mic too much.
it's fine.
I love the packaging.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you so much.
No problem. I think just you being here made me so happy, and I just loved it, every bit of it.
I'm glad I could be your happy of the day.
That was it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and if you liked watching us, please subscribe to us and keep watching Girls Who Get It.